Before we jump into today's episode, we just want to take a moment to say thank you because this podcast has officially been heard in 30 countries around the world.
Last time we checked, maybe it's even more. We'll have to look. But honestly, this is something that we don't take lightly.
And whether you're listening on your morning commute, at home, or somewhere in between, we're very grateful you're here and part of this conversation.
And it makes us a little curious where you might
It
be
does.
listening from. So we would love for you to send us a message or tag us. We just love to hear from you so we know where you're logging in from.
Now let's jump into today's episode. Imagine being told your child has a lifelong illness and you're just coming to grips with knowing that everything is about to change. Today's episode is about what happens next, not just the fear, but the transformation. Welcome back to Strength Happens. Today's episode is especially meaningful as we head into Mother's Day. We're talking about a kind of motherhood that often goes unseen and the kind that's shaped by hospital visits,
Mhm.
uncertainty, advocacy, and an incredible amount of strength.
Absolutely. Today we are joined by Rochelle, a mom and caregiver to her son Parker, who was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis at a young age. What began as one of the most challenging seasons of her life became the foundation for something deeply impactful. Rochelle is the co founder of the Playas Foundation, an organization dedicated to
Yes.
supporting children with complex chronic illness and the families who walk alongside them every day. And if memory serves, Parker's part of that team as well.
So, in this conversation, we're going to go back to the early years, what it was like navigating Parker's diagnosis, the emotional and logistical challenges of caregiving, and how Rochelle's background in early childhood education and her work with the Arthritis Foundation helped shape her path forward.
But more than anything, this is a story about turning pain into purpose and what's possible when you choose to create something meaningful from life's hardest moments. Let's get into it. Welcome, Rochelle. So, welcome, Rochelle. We're super excited to have you visiting us today on the Strength Happens podcast.
And Rochelle, I'd love to start at the beginning. Can you take us back to some of those early years about what was happening when Parker was first diagnosed?
Yes, a lot was happening and we had no idea what was going on. The most predominant things was he was getting a rash that roamed. It would start in one location and even 5 minutes later be in a different
Oh,
location, and then
wow.
it would move to another location and they'd go away. And he was also getting fevers, but they weren't the typical fevers. They were really, really, really high, and then they'd go completely away, and then they'd be just low grade, and then they go completely away, but he was having them
Wow.
daily.
How old was he?
It started at age 8,
Okay.
and he already had some health issues with allergies and asthma, and he was also in a lot of pain. Um
Mhm.
Kind of nonspecific. He wasn't saying it was in a particular location. It was almost 2 years before we
Wow,
got
that's
a
a long time.
diagnosis. So, doctor to doctor to doctor. Doctor would say, "Go to the ER," we go to the ER. No rash, no fever. Yeah.
So, just out of curiosity, what was his official diagnosis that you got after that 2 years of researching?
At first, they just said he had juvenile idiopathic arthritis,
Mhm.
polyarticular juvenile,
Yep.
meaning it was in many joints. But then about 3 months after that, they said he had systemic onset juvenile arthritis,
Mhm.
which I don't know if you have explained that in the past, but it
Mm-mm.
involves not only joints, but
Mhm.
you get these fevers, you get the rashes, they're usually kind of salmon in color, um, and it can attack any organ in the body.
Mm,
So when I say organ, I mean anything: skin, eyes, spleen, liver, heart, lungs, and systems too, endocrine, autonomic.
Wow.
Yeah, it can be a lot because the condition usually brings on other conditions. And it was probably a year after that that we were told he had a common variable immune deficiency called hypogammaglobulinemia. So those are his 2 primary conditions, but yet he sees specialists for multiple things because of those
It
2.
impacts so many body systems.
Yeah.
As a mom, when you got that official diagnosis, what
Mhm.
does that feel like for you? I mean, it could be bittersweet. You finally have a name after 2 years of searching, but it's gotta be powerful. Because I think people hear the term diagnosis, but they don't really understand what that means and how it impacts you and your family.
Yeah, it at first, juvenile arthritis sounds pretty benign,
Mhm.
um,
Mm.
and so I was relieved because
Mm.
they had already been Christmas Eve, they told us, "We think he has cancer." So,
Oh my.
they had to do a lot of ruling out of other
Mhm.
conditions. But I remember getting in the car after seeing rheumatology, and Parker and I immediately called the primary doctor and said, "We have a diagnosis. It's what you thought it was in the very beginning."
Mm.
Um, and I'm so relieved. And she said, "You do know you're on for a long journey. This is going to be more intense than you think." And that kind of just gave me pause. Um, and of course, I went home and started Googling stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and found out quite quickly it was way more than just arthritis.
And was he diagnosed with the immune deficiency at the same time he was diagnosed with the arthritis, or was that later?
No, that was about a year after.
Okay. So
Mm.
it kinda was a year of like an onion peeling back of all the different things that were gonna be impacting him long term.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine there's so much uncertainty in that moment too. Because I remember
Definitely.
Morgan too. Ours was like 6 to 8 months. She just had a swollen finger, and they just kept telling her it was a hemangioma on her finger, and I'm like, "That just doesn't add up." Everything I researched, it just
Yeah.
doesn't pop up overnight. And then went to her knee, and then the pediatrician ran and got her book because she had worked at Camp Boggy Creek
Oh,
during her her training. She's like, "I think she has juvenile arthritis." And sure enough, we had a diagnosis, and it was that finally someone is giving me a word or a diagnosis that I can go and learn and know what to do. But as you said, it was just the beginning. Now you're the parent and being a caregiver, and there's so many layers at that point. So what were some of your biggest unknowns that you faced at that time?
it the biggest unknowns really hit me probably, it might have been 8 months later when we went to the juvenile arthritis conference,
Mhm.
because we were sitting in a session about systemic juvenile arthritis. I was solo.
Yeah.
Um, and they started explaining it, and it was intense, and they were talking about how it could be life-threatening, and then all of a sudden he said, "Still's disease," and
Mm.
then he went, "Well, it used to be called Still's disease. Now they only call it Still's disease in adults and is systemic onset in juvenile arthritis in children."
Mm.
And I lost it
Oh my.
because I had to get up and go to the bathroom, and as a special educator, one of my primary areas was physical impairments and severe profound multiple disabilities, and
Mm.
I studied Still's disease
Yeah.
and did a project on it, and I
So
knew
you knew
exactly
exactly what it
in that
was.
moment everything it meant. And I
Mhm.
remember people, like, knocking on the door, "Are you okay? I had to cry it all out. It
Yeah.
was such a horrible moment.
I think sometimes you need that moment though, because it's a processing grief of what your child's gonna have to experience and what their future is gonna be.
Yeah. I think, though, it was even harder before we knew what was going on, because there was one particular doctor, and I don't really like sharing it, but I think this is important for your podcast because I think more families than we know deal with this, and so I'm
Mhm.
gonna put myself out there for a minute. One of the doctors we saw, well, I think many of the doctors we saw didn't believe us.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And one of the doctors we saw called the primary doctor and said that he felt we were over exaggerating and that I was making my son sick. And
Oh.
the way he explained it, I immediately went ding, 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 ding.
Mhm.
He thinks I have Munchausen by proxy. And so I asked the primary, who happened to be our family doctor, so she was also my doctor.
Mhm.
I said, "Are you saying I might have Munchausen by proxy? Because if so, you need to help me right now, because there is no way in this world I would ever wanna make my kids sick. All I've been trying to do is help him."
Yeah.
And, that was bad, and I know other families deal with that. Doctors don't know everything. They don't.
Mhm.
And when you're accused of something so intense, then you feel responsible. So, that was probably the worst. Um, yeah. So
Yeah. No, I'm with you. When our youngest was a baby, I was accused of Munchausen by proxy in the ER. And you say it so kindly. I got angry. I got fighting mama bear angry because it was my third child with chronic health conditions. And I was calling the chief of pediatrics at 4:30 in the morning. It's infuriating as parents with children with chronic medical issues that you need the validity of knowing that
Mhm.
these fears and these worries and these fevers and these rashes, something going on. And when you get an answer and then to be accused of that is so unbelievably horrific. I don't think medical professionals understand the gravity of something like that because
Mm.
that was 20 years ago for you, 20 years ago for me,
yeah.
and it's still so raw
Yeah.
because that's what you and I and Janine take most pride in as being a mom,
Mhm.
and when
Yeah.
someone questions our ability, it's horrific.
Yeah.
It's powerful, and
Yeah.
we
It
see
was
that far
bad.
too much.
It was yeah, like, how do you move forward from that? That was
Yeah.
just oh, I'm so sorry you dealt with that too, because it's not a good place.
No, and I appreciate you sharing it because I think what
Yeah.
you said in the beginning was I think it's important that for the podcast to hear this is it is happening to families and it's something that
Mhm.
we want medical professionals to be aware of that the impact it can have and you can't make up rashes on your child's body. You
Yeah.
cannot make up fevers. You cannot make up infections. So we need some more empathy and compassion in medicine when working not just with the child but with the family as a whole.
Family, absolutely, and the
Yeah.
irony of the whole thing was this was only our 2nd visit with this doctor. Like, he doesn't
Yeah,
even
that's
know me, and the more ironic part was the doctor was somebody who was highly respected in the field, that I had worked with many of the families who had seen him
wow.
in my work. I
Mm.
was floored. So, yeah, I had
Yeah.
recommended him to many families.
Wow.
So, yeah, it just,
I'm sorry you had that experience,
Yeah.
and I'm
yeah,
sorry it's still impacting you today.
yeah,
Because it
it will forever,
yeah,
you
Of
know?
course
absolutely.
it will.
But
Words
I
are more painful than anything else sometimes.
yeah.
They stay with you forever. Mm, mm.
But and at this point, I love that you want it to be a learning and a teachable moment for other people and other professionals who are gonna work with families like ours, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it allows other parents too to know that they're not the only ones that it has happened to.
I think that's I mean, I'm a
I mean,
crier, Rochelle,
he's a
Janine
huge
warns you.
crier.
But,
Huge
I
crier.
think for me, it was so validating to know I'm not alone, so I appreciate you sharing that story because 'cause I've never met another family where that happened to be honest.
Well, you don't really talk about that, you know?
No. There's, like, shame and embarrassment associated with it, and it's not our fault, it's their fault. Our kids are
Right.
struggling, and we're doing everything we can, but I think it's powerful words that you shared.
Definitely.
What did the day-to-day start to look like to you after that diagnosis of arthritis and the immune deficiency diagnosis? Because
Yeah,
I think that's another piece that people don't understand.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it became chaotic. It really did. I mean, because it doesn't just impact the child you're treating, it impacts the entire family.
The
Mhm.
sibling, the spouses, like,
Yeah,
your marital relationship, your sibling relationships, everything.
yeah, and, interestingly, there is no pediatric rheumatologist in our city. Janine knows that.
Right.
And so you have to go somewhere else to get treatment. We chose to go to UF Shands, which is about 2 hours away.
Mhm.
So treatment was all over the place because they were trying to figure out what worked for him. And for the longest time, it was 2.5 years, he was on a treatment that required us to go there every 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So, it impacted my other kids' school and after school activities. It
Mhm.
impacted work, and you're going there, and you're there all day,
Mhm.
and then you have to get back in the car, and, of course, he's missing school, I'm missing work. Um, Michael, that's my husband, had to juggle everything at home, and sometimes treatment involves staying overnight because
Mhm.
they had to run it for so long. So then as soon as you go past infusion hours, there's a hospital admission. So it was rough. And then they had a very difficult time finding something that actually tried to suppress his symptoms and disease activity.
Mhm.
So it was also very frustrating because every time we turned around, she was saying, "This medicine has failed him. This
Mhm.
medicine has failed him." And I so appreciated her saying it that way because so many times you hear, "They failed this med. The kid
Mhm.
failed
Yeah.
this med." It is the med
It's
that,
not their fault.
fails the kid, but,
Mhm.
um, yeah, it was crazy, and then as all that was happening, as I mentioned earlier, new diagnoses were happening.
Mhm.
Mm.
So, he had to then see endocrine because he had adrenal insufficiency. He had to see cardiology because he had pericardial effusion. He had to see pulmonology because he had pulmonary and
Mhm.
interstitial lung disease. And then,
Oh.
it just was like we were just adding more and more and more
Mhm.
appointments. And I mean, 2012 was a horrible year, and there wasn't a single week we weren't doing something medical.
Mhm.
And 2015 was maybe a little worse. It was a lot. It just changed
Yeah.
our world.
And so were all the specialists at Shands then, or did you have them in different cities?
We live in Florida, Tampa. So we went to Gainesville, St. Pete, Palm Beach, because Baskin Palmer's
Mhm.
down there, and Nemours, which was in Orlando.
Orlando.
So we
Mhm.
were all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to put a little map up with Parker's specialists all over to see how
Yeah.
far. If we could only get points for how far we drive as parents for what we need to do.
Yeah. And it's expensive. So when you
Yeah.
think about it, sometimes it causes an overnight stay, so you're having hotel, and then, of
Mhm.
course, gas and food.
Mhm. And activities to keep them distracted and normalize them being just kids at the moment of their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, as a mom, do you think you held all of that together? Still trying to be a mom to both your children, and you as a person.
I mean, I just did the best I could, but I don't think I did it very well at times because we're all human. That's a hard question. I I did
Yeah.
little things for myself to try to put my brain in a more positive place
Mm.
so that my emotions would stay in check. And for me, I know this is a really weird thing, but I would look at Pinterest for really pretty art, positive
Mm.
statements, um, places to vacation that I'd probably never get
That will
to.
never go.
But I made pin walls
Mm.
so that when I was really upset, I could go and look at them
That
to
was
be
Oh, what a
lifted
calming.
up.
beautiful
That's a great
that's
idea.
a beautiful coping strategy. I love that. It's
Yeah.
like your own vision board or your own
Yes,
sanctuary
Yeah.
online.
yes. I mean, I also have my informational boards, but, it
Yeah.
was more about the art, the nature,
The calming of your brain.
yes. And, my background, the
Mm.
projects that I directed at USF were around social emotional development. So I tried to use some of the strategies that we would teach the kids,
Well,
um,
mm,
because they work, you know?
right.
But I was definitely, I mean, if you probably asked my coworkers, there were moments I broke down, and there were moments I'd be doing a presentation and then someone would share, I worked in the field of disability.
Mhm.
So then someone would share their story and it so hit home that I
Mhm.
start getting all choked up, and so it
Because
was,
it's raw and it's
yeah,
real.
Yeah.
It's your
yeah.
life.
And you're trying to be there for them. And at the same time, you're like, "Oh god, this is me." I
Yeah.
can I remember saying, "I help so many families, why can't I help my own?" I
Mm.
said it to
Mm.
my coworkers.
I just
Oh,
said that to
wow.
my husband today. I'm like, "How is it I recognize all this in other people's families and I don't even support mine in the way I wanna support them." We put a lot of pressure on ourselves as moms, I think, especially
We
when you're
do.
in the
So,
profession.
yes, it absolutely. There's a different lens you have, like,
Mhm.
if you're in education, if you're in medical, if you're in family-centered something support-wise, you just have such a different lens, and there's a lot of positives around that, but you also
Mhm.
sometimes know too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of that lens, what is something you wish more people understood about raising a child with chronic illness?
That there's a lot people don't see.
There's a lot in that sentence you just said.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I mean it in different ways too,
Mhm.
because there's a lot you physically don't see, and then there's a lot you don't see because we won't let you see it, and the reason we won't let you see it, I think, is part of our coping,
Mhm.
because if we have to show you, then it's not gonna be pretty,
Mhm. Yeah.
and it's gonna raise a lot of questions that you have to talk about.
Mhm.
But Parker was in a wheelchair for 5 years, so I wish people wouldn't hush their children when they ask questions.
Mhm.
I wish people wouldn't look away, especially
Mhm.
in an elevator. Come on, we're in the same space. I wish people would, and I don't think this is just for our kids, I think it's for just humans. I think people should not assume when someone is angry or frustrated or maybe a little bit rude that that's that person's personality.
Mhm.
It is more than likely coping mechanism, or they don't know how to communicate how they're feeling. Our culture doesn't talk about feelings,
Right.
so then it comes out in frustration, emotion, maybe some of those negative emotions. And it's like that for children too.
Right.
So I think we need to have more grace with people.
Mhm.
And the financial toll is
Mhm.
something that you
Mhm.
don't see it. You don't. And even if you have, good financial support through your work and your insurance, it's still a financial toll
Mhm.
because there's so many things that, even though if you have good health insurance, there's still copays.
Mhm.
We meet our max always
Mhm.
way before the year is ended.
I'm like, "Preach it, sister, preach. This
Yes.
is all we deal with." Like, this is
It's
such
horrible.
We
important.
talk about this all the time, but we really haven't we wanna do a medical insurance. We wanna do a whole episode.
It needs to be a whole episode.
Yeah. Yep.
We just started saving for retirement a few years ago because we've had to
Mhm.
cash out 401(k)s to pay for rare medical procedures or travel to NYU Medical or for
And
special treatment or
exactly. But when I say people don't see it, they really don't realize what some of these families do
Mhm.
to get their kids what they need. They give up cable.
they don't take vacations.
They
They
don't
don't
take vacations. They give
Use
up,
thrift clothes.
yep, meals
Yep.
and go to, like, really simple things like peanut butter and jelly because
Mm.
they need the money to pay for the gas to get to their kids' appointments that are, like, 2 hours away. It's horrible. I can
I
tell
think
you many stories about things we've heard, especially during the hurricanes. The financial burden is something that really hits Parker personally because we have a roof over our head, we have food, we have clothing, we have what we need, and we don't really need that much, right?
Right.
But he is seeing families go without, and heard kids say things that he can't even believe. So it has actually been a very big mission of his to try to
Like, bridge that gap.
yeah, yeah.
And how old is Parker now?
He is 26.
He's Morgan's age, and
I
would have been
know.
Hallie's
It's
and would have
crazy.
been
I was
Hallie's
thinking
age,
about that
yeah,
last night.
yeah. It's so powerful what you've said. You brought a lot of different components there of what we see, and one that hit me more is that I don't let other people see. I don't talk about, I don't share a lot. Um, I've
It's
shared
on a
more.
podcast.
Well, and it's funny, Jill even says, she's like, "I didn't even know that."
Yeah, there
And
are
we've
things
been friends forever. Yeah.
we share things on here we've never shared before because it's for a greater purpose, but we've
Yeah.
never shared it with each other because we don't wanna burden other people. And I don't know about you guys, but one time I was having a really bad day and someone came to my door that was a friend, and I'm just sobbing, but I keep that to myself. And I
Yeah.
don't know what possessed me, but I opened the door and she looked at me and I was like, "I do this all the time." Like, there's days where I'll just cry. I just happen to open the door and they're calling other people. Jill's a basket case. I don't know, something's wrong. I'm like, no, this is my reality. And I never, after that day, I never let other people see me cry like that
Mm.
because it happens too often. People just don't believe you.
I stopped
Yeah.
crying.
Yeah, I don't
I
Totally.
cry.
I used to be okay with crying in public or whatever.
Oh, I never cry
I
anymore in public.
stopped. I stopped because
Yeah.
there was too much judgment from people.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that's sad that we don't allow for that connection of human emotion because
Mhm.
sometimes the tears are anger, the tears are frustration, the tears are love. You know, there's reasons behind it that I
Absolutely.
I'm known as a crier, but I cry because I'm
Mm,
connecting with someone. I don't
mm,
necessarily cry because of what's happening in my own family because I don't
yeah.
want others to see that
Yep.
side. It's too raw to let someone in, and they don't understand, and they just kinda you're right, they do kinda judge sometimes.
I have to commend the 2 of you because what you are doing is so brave,
Mm,
um, needed. We need more people to know. Ooh,
mm.
we need more people to
Yeah.
know about these things and nobody wants to talk about. And
Mm,
people don't know what families deal with when they have horrendous loss of life,
mm,
chronic conditions, because you're in your home, you're not out showing everybody. Some are not even in school. So
yeah.
I really am grateful to the 2 of you for doing this.
Mm.
This is big. And you may not have a ton of followers yet, but boy, you're going
No, no.
to. You're going to. It took us 5 years with Purple Playas, and it needs to be
Talked about,
yeah,
Yeah, needs to be
and that's what we hope.
normalized.
Mm,
We need
yep.
to normalize the abnormal, and this is one part of the Halle Grace Foundation that we just weren't reaching yet, and when Janine and I started brainstorming about the podcast last year or the past year and a half, I was
mhm,
like, "This is the gap we're missing. This is what we need to do is we need something for families, that sense of community to know that we're not alone in this
mm,
battle to raise our
Yeah,
children. This it's really so much of a war to fight insurance companies. It's a war to
it's
keep our
exhausting.
marriage healthy and to spend time with each
Mhm,
other. It's a battle to make sure we're spending time with each of our children and, you know, balancing those family logistics. It's so much going on and it's my hope that not just families find us, but the health community finds us so they can understand what these perspectives are like.
yeah.
um,
And also, how do we
And we're some
find
badass bitches, I'm sorry, as moms. It's Mother's Day. We're some badass bitches.
yeah, yeah.
mm,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, you were gonna say
No,
something.
I was just gonna say, and it's also important that we figure out how to have some non-medical friends, right? Like,
yeah,
where we don't have to talk about
mhm,
anything medical and just be and do
yep,
what normal people do.
What
yeah,
is that? What is that? Like, go
Go
for
the
that's
show.
coffee, go to a bookstore, like, take a crochet class, like, any of these things that would be so great to just to
It's
Yeah.
not
our
have to.
Morgan Monday. Every Monday, we go with 2 other couples to dinner. We bring Morgan with us, and sometimes other kids will show up, but every Monday, clockwork. But it's nice because it's not
That's cool.
about Morgan. It's not we just talk about everyday stuff, what their jobs are like, the things that I don't have to get emotional about,
Mhm.
Yes.
honestly.
Yes. Yeah. I used to go to a lot of work events, because there's always these
Mhm.
big gathering kind of things, and I used to say, "I hate going into a crowded room because I feel like I'm all alone."
Mm.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I always hate meeting new people because 'cause they'll ask me how many children I have, and I have to explain everything with losing a child, and it's just I hate those new things, and I just sometimes will evade the question because I just wanna be Jill. I don't wanna be
Yeah.
the mom of 3 chronically ill kids, the mom of who's lost a child. You don't wanna be that person in the room where you get a label put on you. You
Yeah.
just wanna be you. And sometimes it's hard to remember that we were human beings before we became moms as we
Yeah.
approach Mother's Day. Out of curiosity, what's something about Rochelle that was your fun thing about you or something unique about you before you became a mom?
Hmm. Good question, Shelley.
I used to love to go dancing.
Oh.
Really? We
Yeah.
need to go to the Dallas Bull when I come back down to Florida on mom's night.
Yeah. I used to love to go dancing. In fact, that was our first date, my husband and I,
Oh,
and it was a
No
blind
way.
date.
Really?
what kinda dancing?
Joyland, the country bar, and I
Yeah.
don't I
I
I don't really like country music, but that's where we landed for our first date. I used to play the guitar.
mm,
Gosh, I don't do those things anymore, but I still am crafty, and I
yeah, you are
still
crafty. I remember that.
yeah, I still like doing crafts and art, and
If
it's
you
just
could pick
different.
If you could pick back up one hobby you did before you became a mom, what would you like to pick up?
It would probably be dancing, but
Mm.
now when I go out, I use a chair. I use an electric wheelchair because of my condition. So,
You would be a wheelchair dancer.
I know, gotta get a little bit better with the wheelchair first.
Callie utilized a wheelchair her last few years of life, and her Girl Scout troop went to DC this summer before ninth grade, and that was the year she was getting so ill. I couldn't go because I had just had surgery, and Lizzie Korn and one other Girl Scout, I think, Jane, had the wheelchair, and Lizzie was dancing with Hallie while there was a band playing in the background,
Mm.
and because Hallie
I
loved to
love that.
dance like you, so she was a dancer, and so she took up
Mm,
wheelchair dancing after that, and we'd have fun with
well,
it.
maybe for her, I'll
You'll you'll go dancing.
I'll go dancing and think of her.
There
I'll be
you go.
it's like
I just think it's important as us as moms, as we approach Mother's Day and we talk about raising kids with chronic illness, that we don't lose ourselves in that, that we continue to find ways to express who we are. I think for Janine and I, this podcast allows us to have some creativity,
mhm.
but it also allows us just to have conversations, and be friends. And, maybe you'll be playing guitar or dancing before we know it. So,
Now, I was lucky enough to meet you through the Arthritis Foundation. I think it was California conferences, I think was the first time I met you.
I thought it was St. Louis. Did you
I
go to
didn't
St.
go to St. Louis.
Oh, then
Mm-mm.
it would have been
No,
California.
he's
but,
got
yeah, but I remember, like, for me, that was the first time I met you, and I was very impressed with your involvement, and I would say that motivated me to get more involved and not be afraid to step out of my comfort zone, but I really feel like your involvement with the Arthritis Foundation, um, how did that play into your role in the community and, why you did it and, like, was it
Yeah.
natural for you, which I'm sure it was.
Well, it's funny. I'm a shy person when I meet new people.
See, no, to me, you command a room. I find that everyone flocks to you. It's so funny you say that
That's
because that's
weird
the
because
impression I
I
got.
feel the total
Yeah.
opposite. But I think for me, the conference was a lot
Mm,
like work mode
okay.
Mm.
because so first I taught for 10 years, pre-K, special ed classroom. And then I went from that to working at University of South Florida, where we had multiple projects around early childhood and always
Mhm.
related to disability, inclusionary practices, and family supports.
Mhm.
The reason I got involved with the Arthritis Foundation mainly was to learn
Mhm.
because I wanted to know absolutely everything I could to support my child. And then it started feeling like the special ed world. Like, it felt
Mhm.
Mhm.
like, here were families, disability, medical. And so then I was like, okay, how can I help Arthritis Foundation get more family involvement? And at the time, this might have been a bit before you joined, Janine. At the
Mhm.
time, they were afraid to show the bad.
Mhm.
They didn't wanna scare families, so they didn't show kids in wheelchairs. They didn't show any kind of
Mm.
medical photos on their website, in their
Wow.
sessions. Now, the doctors did, but the
Mhm.
foundation didn't because they didn't wanna scare families. In fact, at one point, they even wanted to have Parker talk to a newscaster about his disease, but because he had multiple things going on, they were too nervous to do it because so many kids don't have that much involvement,
Right.
right? He was the rarer, and he, again, didn't want to scare off families. So
Mhm.
I was like, "No, we've gotta be real, and we have to
Yeah.
Mhm.
recognize it's a continuum of juvenile arthritis." There are some kids who you would
Mhm.
see and never even pick up on that they have it.
Right.
And then there's some that have such involvement, you will not believe that they have juvenile arthritis
Right.
and
Right.
everything in between. So,
And I think it does a disservice if you don't show all the continuum, then families who have complex issues feel so isolated and alone if they don't know other people are dealing with that.
yeah. And at conferences, they did that. Like, they had the
Yeah.
multiple sessions, but their marketing was not like that. In
Right.
fact, the first thing we got wasn't even about kids, it was just about arthritis. And
Mm.
Yeah, the first book, like, that was a book just about all about the arthritis, not about the JA, that was later.
yeah,
Mm.
so it became my mission. I was going
Mm.
to try to share what I knew as best practice for families raising children with disability. And
Were you one of the first people that started the Juvenile Arthritis Day? Because that was new,
the
I
family days, yeah,
yeah,
Whoa!
yeah,
yeah, I was gonna
Fancy
say that
you. That's such
was
a
right around
special
that
part.
time.
yeah, it was really cool too because Logan had to have a volunteer project that he put together.
Mhm.
So it was truly a family day. They had fun stuff for
Oh,
the
wow.
kids that he led, and we had our time with doctors and each other. It was almost like a mini conference. And then they continued it. So as much as I gained from learning about advocacy, learning about the disease, learning about where the good doctors are, from
Yeah.
the Arthritis Foundation, I felt like I also wanted to pay them back for that. So, because I did trainings, because I worked with families, then I was like, okay, let me help with conference. I have ideas because
Mhm.
I did that professionally. So, it just seemed like a good marriage. And there were a lot of things that they were doing that were amazing that I wanted to figure out how to incorporate also in the educational arena.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So it was a win-win, and I was speaking as a parent and as a
Professional.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a specific moment where things started to shift for you where you said, "I wanna do something more with this?" Whether it be more with the Arthritis Foundation or more with your own foundation?
Yes. It it was when we were in the infusion room. When I worked with children professionally, part of my job was coaching both parents and teachers around understanding children's behaviors and emotions. So, behaviors have a purpose and they communicate something.
Mhm,
And we need to validate that emotion and then almost like teach a replacement skill
mhm.
or
Mhm.
another way to communicate the message that's socially acceptable. This goes for all humans. But I naturally tried to do this with my own children. And let
Mhm.
me tell you, Parker was a frickin' challenge to raise because he had a very strong will and some big time challenging behavior, some because of how he's wired, some because of the meds,
Mhm.
some because
Yeah.
he was just over it.
Mhm.
And so I use the strategies of self regulation, coping, regulating your feelings with him. And we
Mm.
were in the infusion center, and at the time, infusion rooms, this is before COVID, they were open,
Mhm.
which is curtains for each chair. And one of the kids was screaming because she had to get a IV started, and we were watching the whole thing because we were right across.
Yeah.
And she obviously was scared. The nurses brought up that they might have to take her in the room and
Mhm.
blanket her, which I
Oh
found out
gosh.
later is where you kinda put them in a mummified state, with the blanket so that you can have them
Mm.
still enough to get
Right.
the stick. They were calling for child life, and Parker stood up with his pole, so not HIPAA, but he stood with his pole and walked over to the little one and started talking to her
Oh.
about Tucker Turtle. And
Um,
Tucker Turtle is a strategy we use in early childhood where you're supposed to stop, meaning stop your behavior, stop your flailing, stop your
mm,
screaming. And then you're supposed to take 3 deep breaths because when you're in a heightened state of anxiety,
mhm.
your whole physical state is off, your heart rate, your pressure.
All your physiologic response to
You
stress.
can't even
Yeah.
think. So
Yeah.
he sat there and walked her through and then said, "Okay, let's think of a solution." And
Wow.
What a
they
proud
talked.
mama moment that must
Yeah.
have
I
been.
sat there just watching because, as a
Mhm.
mom, I couldn't go over there. I knew HIPAA rules.
Yeah. Yeah, nope. Yeah.
He was he
The kids can cross those
Yes.
boundaries.
I know, and he did it, and that was my aha. That was my
Mm.
total
That
aha
this is
because
needed.
the nurses were like, "Whoa," and then I was like, "Whoa." I'm like, "Why are we not teaching these
Mhm.
things in the
Mhm.
hospitals?" We should learn things from child life, and special ed should teach some things to child life, like crossover.
Why isn't it
So
taught in college? That's the to me,
Right.
it should be part of their program.
yeah, yeah, and I
Mhm.
do think they get some of it, but a lot of it is around distraction technique.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I think the power of anything we do with children is validation of feelings
Mhm.
first, and then moving into the
Well,
strategy of
and
it.
giving them control. Like,
Yeah,
they're
Yes.
in a situation where there's no control, but if you can teach them the skills where they can take control of their emotions and when the ID goes in and all these different things, you're
Mhm.
giving them
exactly.
back power in such a vulnerable situation.
Yep,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of ways you can do it. You can give them
Mhm.
all kinds of choices, people just don't think about it. And
Yes.
so, I remember we were usually one of the last families to leave the infusion room every day,
Mhm.
and his doctor came in, and I remember asking her, "Does anybody use these kinds of techniques?" And she goes, "I don't think so, but you'd have to talk to Child Life." And
Mhm.
and I said, "Okay, I'm gonna." And I said, "And while we're on the subject, what is needed? Like, what do you feel is needed for families?" And
Mhm.
she said, "Well, we don't have a designated social worker in peds rheumatology because we don't have enough funding." And this is almost all peds rheumatology, by the way.
Mhm.
And then she
Yep.
said, "So when a family needs a gas card or a food card, we have to go and ask for one from a social worker, but the social worker has them only for the designated department that they have designated it for. And so we never have them." And so I was like, "Oh." And then Parker goes, "But we knew a family that had to turn off their electricity and, um, the kid
That's
lost their
sad.
cable bill and didn't get their homework in time because they couldn't get on the internet. And, So it was this moment of, okay, this is really bad. And then she goes, and if we're talking about this, there's not enough pediatric rheumatologists.
Yeah.
Nope.
Just
And
throw that in there too.
yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, that's a really big, tall order. I don't know how I could help with that. But, I'm going to tuck that in the back of my brain.
Mhm.
And yeah. And still, there's not enough pediatric rheumatologists. There's like 300 and something to 300,000 children, and there's still 8 states without a pediatric
Mm,
rheumatologist.
mhm.
There's 12 states with only 1.
That's so
Wow.
crazy. Yeah, there's a lot of people drive far.
Yes.
And we're lucky being in Tampa Bay is
Yep.
that we do have a lot more access to the pediatric rheumatologists here,
Yeah.
ironically.
But I also still find it ironic that there's none in Tampa. We had
That is true.
Yep. And here's the crazy thing. We just
Mm,
spent a week in the hospital with Parker, and we started down at the hospital near the stadium.
okay.
Okay, so they have another branch north,
Mhm.
Yep,
and they literally told us, he was at the complex clinic, and they're like, "You need to go to the ER. I think they're gonna have to admit you." And the decision was made to go to the North Hospital because there was the big concert, BTS,
oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
happening. So
Mhm,
they knew that they were gonna get, a lot of patients in the ER.
yeah,
And so we went to the North. They had to call all of Parker's specialists, including rheumatology, because they do not have an adult rheumatologist on staff, and they do not
mhm,
have an adult immunologist on staff. And we're
yeah,
talking adult.
yeah,
So, yeah. So we were like, okay, we're going to do something about that. And I started a foundation with another family that kind of fizzled out. And then we just sat on, the idea. We tried to gather gas cards for the clinic, and we did that for a while where we just personally gathered gas
yeah.
cards for the clinic. And then when I decided to retire early, because Parker's
Mm,
health was getting really bad, and I was starting to have some health issues that couldn't be explained again, couldn't be explained. And, about 6 months after that, I couldn't not do something. I needed to have purpose, and yes, I know I'm a mom and everything, but I just needed to do more with
mhm.
what I knew as an educator, and so we started the Purple Playas Foundation,
And what year was
and,
that?
uh, 2018,
Great, great.
and we decided that those were the things we were gonna deal with. We were gonna deal with social emotional being mechanisms and supports for the kids and the families, that we were going to provide miles, which we purposely left that really broad like that because the smiles could then include anything that would put a smile on a child's face or the family's face. And that included the gas cards and food
Mm.
cards, along with a lot of other things. And then we decided to fund pediatric rheumatology. And we
The
partnered,
little thing of funding
Just a
pediatric
little. Just a
rheumatology.
little bit of money.
we had to fundraise like crazy, let me tell you. Um, but we partnered with the Arthritis Foundation. So the way we were able to do it was Arthritis Foundation paid for a third, we paid for a third, and we started at UF Shands Hospital, and they paid for a third.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
were able to, with that funding, to fund 2 fellows
That's
Oh,
awesome.
over 3 years. So that was huge.
congratulations. That's
That's
a
a
Yeah.
huge
great accomplishment.
accomplishment.
And then we were also able to fund in the next 3 years, so we're in our 2nd cycle and on the end of it, a child life specialist.
Oh,
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, we purposely are trying to pick fields that have critical shortages, and there's quite a
Mhm.
few in
Yeah.
pediatrics, so we'll just keep going.
I
Yeah.
love I love that this isn't just an idea, it comes from your lived experience as a mom raising Parker and your own experiences in education and psychosocial impact on disability. What do you think is the most important to you when you created this foundation? What element was most important?
The social emotional supports. I always wanna help everybody, and so as soon as we started, I wanted to just help all the kids,
Yeah.
but it's impossible. So I say, okay, we're going to start with early childhood because that's what I know best.
Mhm.
And then we kind of went up in age. We're actually in the process. We have a infant toddler coping kit. All the kits have evidence-based practices in them. And we also listen to families. We have focus and advisory, tell us what people need because we don't want to create something that already exists or that won't meet needs. So then we developed just recently a teen coping kit
Mhm.
and looks very different than
Yeah,
the
I
younger
would
kids.
imagine.
Yeah. Um, and a lot of it is explaining to them how to get to resources, but we have this little dilemma because some of our kids who are teens are of neurotypical development, and then we have some that have
Mhm.
developmental delays. So we have them being piloted right now at the complex clinic because they treat both
Oh,
and
Mhm.
nice.
probably more kids with developmental issues. And then
Yeah.
we also have it at a pediatric rheumatology clinic where they probably
Oh,
have more
nice.
kids with typical development. So June, we're hoping to mass produce those and get those out. But the really cool thing is that we were hearing that kids couldn't find scholarships or the
Mhm.
scholarships were disease specific or you had to go full time to get funding.
Yeah.
So we developed a young adult educational grant
Mm.
named after Ann Nymark, who helped us start the foundation. She's an amazing individual. And you can be a part-time student or you can work on a trade or certification, or you could just wanna take one college class and,
Yeah.
you can still apply. So, we're just trying to do what families need that there isn't another source for, and we purposely doing all children with conditions because that too can be an issue if you have multiple conditions. So,
You
yeah.
don't fit
Well, when
in
you
a
have
box.
those conditions, you can't necessarily go full time to school. You have so
Right,
many other things going on.
right.
So you're filling that gap and that need. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I think the work you're doing and how you've been an advocate in this space is just unbelievable, not just for pediatric rheumatology, but really for all children with chronic illness is what you're impacting. It's beyond just your own child's diagnosis. It's so powerful to me. What do you think is something you hope people take away from hearing your story?
I love the name of your podcast, Strength Happens, because I hear all the time, "You're so strong,"
Mm-hmm.
and I don't feel strong. I know I'm strong, but I don't feel strong,
Mhm,
and I think strength happens because of love, and I hope that others who don't have kids who are healthy realize that, love will bring you to what you need to do, whether it is
Mm-hmm.
fight like a mama bear
Mm-hmm.
or use your whole day to call the insurance company and fight for insurance coverage or,
Yeah.
being present just by your child's bedside. Love moves through it all, even when we're angry, and just having grace with families and not just checking in and seeing how they are, but actually being their friend and having
Mm.
conversations. I'm so grateful to the friends in our lives because they love us even though we can be grumpy.
Yeah. Or not present for periods of time.
Absolutely. And they
Mm.
still invite you, even though
Yeah.
you're probably gonna say yes,
Yeah.
and then it's gonna impossibly be no.
but,
Mm.
that's what matters, that you're still feeling part of the family even though you can't be a part there or with your friend group, that they still want you to know your value of being
Mhm.
part of their lives, even if they don't see you.
Yeah, because you naturally lose people over time to
Mhm.
whatever's going on in people's lives, but those people that stand by, those are really special people.
Mhm.
Mm. Your story is such a powerful reminder of what strength really looks like, especially from our perspective. And like you said, how something so difficult can become something that impacts so many others. And I think we need to talk and share
Keep
those
these conversations
experiences, and
going.
the conversations are needed. So thank you.
Thank
And
you for doing
and
this.
it's so nice. It's funny because Janine and I, when we picked the title Strength Happens, it was under that guise that a lot of people always tell us, "You're so strong, you're so
Hmm.
strong." But it's like, we don't have a choice, it just happens. You have to
Yes.
show up as your child.
Yeah.
So it's nice to feel like someone got the meaning behind the
Yeah.
message because and of course, it's another mom going through what we go through day and day because it's not a choice. It's also a play on shit happens, which happens every day when you're dealing with chronic
Yeah.
illness.
Yeah.
But you really got the meaning of what strength happens means to us, and it is all about the love of our child.
Yeah,
So,
because you don't have a choice.
no, nope,
Mm.
this is our lives. And especially with Mother's Day, it just feels like this is such an important conversation with
Yeah.
us three moms sitting here. There are so many moms out there that are carrying things that people don't always see. And so I
Mhm.
appreciate and value you sharing your stories so that others families know they're not alone, that it's not just us. There's many families out there. And I appreciate the power you're doing with the Purple Playas Foundation and how you're helping so many families and young people.
I appreciate you
Yeah.
guys. You have no idea, and your timing's good because 'cause I'm starting to lose my voice.
Mm. Well, before we wrap up, though, we need to make sure we share a little bit about the upcoming fundraiser
Yes,
in
we
two
Oh,
wanna
weeks.
highlight the
2
work you're
weeks?
doing and help you raise
Yeah,
more
we wanna
money.
make sure people can support the work you're doing, and just to hear a little bit about your fundraiser and what
And
we
if you
can do to
lose your
help.
voice, we'll also include it on our socials, so
Yeah.
So, we have an annual fundraiser. It is our primary means of raising funds for everything that we do with our mission. The following Friday, May 15th, is our party, and it's a play on words
Mhm.
because the golf tournament is the next day, but the party is a time for everybody to come together, have fun. We have a kid zone, so it's kid friendly. This year, our theme is, "Oh, the places we'll go," so we're
Ah,
playing off of the whole
Mm.
Dr. Seuss thing,
love it.
and it's at TPC Tampa Bay. Chef is incredible. We're planning on a Filipino bar, an Italian bar,
Oh.
and then we have drinks paired with it. We have silent auction and a live auction. This year we have an Italy trip that we're
Oh, wow.
auctioning
Ooh.
off for 2 and a Scottsdale trip. The community businesses have donated, so we have a lot of
Mhm.
auction items. And then we also have the golf tournament the next day, which is a shotgun start, and then there's an awards barbecue. I do want to announce our honoree this year. His name is Noah. He receives treatment at UF Shands Health, and people need to come just to meet him because he's so cute and funny. His mom shared
Mhm.
that when he was in utero, they thought he was having a stroke, but he did not have a stroke. He had a brain tumor.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow.
So when he was born, of course, he has continued to fight that battle. It actually has come back and they're working on that. But he also has systemic onset juvenile arthritis.
Oh,
He actually loves Roombas, the vacuum.
yeah.
Yes!
So he's bringing his Roomba, and we bought hand-controlled robots, and we're
Oh,
gonna have a bowling competition to knock
with
him
those
out
I love it! I
That's so
love
because he
funny.
sport.
loves it so much. So the kids have some fun in store because Noah came up with this idea. So,
Go
Oh,
Noah. We're looking forward to your
yeah,
fundraiser.
how old's Noah?
12.
Okay.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Rochelle, thank you so much for sharing your story, your heart, and the work you are doing through the Purple Playas Foundation. This is the kind of conversations that stay with you and
Mhm.
reminds us what strength and love really look like. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys are pretty awesome.
So, if this episode resonated with you, there's an opportunity to turn that feeling into action. The Purple Playas Foundation is hosting their annual fundraiser this May, supporting children
Woohoo!
and families navigating complex chronic illnesses and providing everything from resources and emotional support to experiences that simply bring joy during incredibly difficult times. So, if you'd like to get involved, whether that's attending, donating, or just even sharing their mission, you'll be able to find all the details in our show notes, and we'll be highlighting them on our socials.
And if you happen to be listening after their fundraiser, they accept donations year round. So feel free to visit their website, no problem. We want to support the foundations that are making a difference in people's lives, especially children living with chronic illness. And if you know a mom who needs to hear this story, especially as we head into Mother's Day, send this episode to her. These are the stories that remind us no one is alone in what they're carrying when raising children with chronic illness. We're all one community. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.
This is Strength Happens.